Hey YouTube, Dan Ottawa here, coming at you with an Open Master League team from Miles Man, I think the viewer submitted. So appreciate the submission. Xerneas, Giratina, and Yveltal. And what I like about this team is, so I haven't done a lot of analysis in the Master League because I haven't played like Open in a long time because it's all level 50. I really like this team build because Giratina was in like an OG Pokemon and its main answers, it was built to answer Kyogre. Mewtwo is the main one and then did well against Melmetal. Yveltal came around and kind of handles those to a certain extent as well, like dominates Mewtwo, also does well against other psychics like Lugia, does well against ghosts like Giratina, and it has a focus blast for like Melmetal and Dialgas. So Xerneas was the only one I was like, hey, what is this strengths and weaknesses? So it has a close combat for, again, close combat for the steals, Moonblast for the Dragon. So a great combo in Open Master League. I look at his losses. His main losses are Metagross, Excadrill, Kyogre, and Mewtwo. But like I said, you have two strong answers for Mewtwo in the back. You have at least one super hard wall in Giratina for Kyogre and decent in the other. Excadrill, you can do well in both, and Metagross you do dominate in both too because it takes super effective from both. So this team build is actually a very, very smart team build. So let's get into the battles. I unfortunately just shut this whole thing and realized I was not filming. So all these battles, because I just went through, I think there's 6 of them. I just went all 6 of them. All 6 of them do have Mewtwo on this team. And again, when you have the Mewtwo and you have 2 answers for Mewtwo, it's just so dominant. So this team does very well against Mewtwo. If you see Mewtwo, I still think that even if you don't see Mewtwo on the team, it just does well overall because just of the wide coverage that you have on this team. This matchup was just hard countered. There's not much to talk about there. You got a Fairy on a Dragon here. You got Yveltal on Mewtwo, and then you have a Giratina on a Melmetal. So it's just hard counter. Some of the other battles, both played well. So I'll go over. I'll kind of showcast properly the matchup and how it works. But with this team, let me just go over how this team works in general. You'll stay in the lead if you have a good lead. Again, any dragon essentially, you're staying in the lead. If you need to safe swap, your safe swap is Giratina. You cannot come Yveltal safe swap because Yveltal just gets dominated by fairies and you have nothing to throw and it's just hard. Even if you get caught with like a Dialga on your Giratina where it's like a loss, you're still going to be able to like probably grab a shield in most scenarios. Even in scenarios where you can't grab a shield, you're still going to do a ton of chip damage and not get hard walled like you would in Yveltal. So Giratina is the safe swap for this team. But yeah, this matchup there's not much you can do, but the other matchups were a lot closer and I think really well played by both opponents for most of them. So I will start showcasing those probably like I did last time I just filmed this, but it did not work. So this was just a hard counter city. They're throwing, does not matter. Everything's resisted here. So this will be an easy win here. So in the next matchup here, we have Xerneas into Hydreigon. So a good lead. Again, Dark Dragon, there's nothing they can do. They got to get out, and they get out into a Mewtwo. Hit him with Giratina. Again, I said this when I just filmed this. Don't go into Giratina here because Giratina will still... Mewtwo can still grab shields here, and you do shield up a Side Strike here because they could have Ice Beam. Double Side Strikes takes out Giratina. So if they like shield properly Shadow Balls, they can get multiple Side Strikes off here. So you have to come Yveltal. Yveltal is such a hard answer to Mewtwo, so you got to come there. Again, it's a decent answer, but it's not super hard. Also in this matchup, which I noted before, if you're a Mewtwo, maybe if you only have one move left, you can throw it. Don't throw Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball only does like 75% maybe. Side Strike does like 50%. So you still need like a Shadow Ball plus a Side Strike to take it out. So just go double Side Strike. Mewtwo's taken out. Metagross in the back. So you can close combat. Yep. So close combat here. And then Yveltal just has such a strong matchup anyway. So you're probably fine just going straight Yveltal anyways. They come in with Hydreigon. And Hydreigon is half dark. So this Focus Blast is going to do super effective. And this is where the Focus Blast move here is just like a super strong second move to have because you have darks and you have steals, and that is a one-shot. Shield here, Dark Pulse, take this out. So I really like Yveltal in this meta. Again, there are a lot of fairies. If you see a fairy, you're in trouble, so you kind of need to have like to fairy answers to a certain extent, just because you can't do anything against a fairy. So Xerneas against Giratina. This is a decent matchup, okay matchup, because the tackles are resisted. The Shadow Balls will chip. You catch on Yveltal, so that's a good catch. Again, I just watched this matchup, so I know you don't get hard punished. It's a good catch for a resistant move, but they come in here with Dialga, which is still an okay matchup for them, right? They're already in the yellow. Iron Head will probably take them up between the Dragon Breath, so you shield, throw Dark Pulse, pretending it's a Focus Blast, so they're likely going to shield. They do shield. Now you can get to the Focus Blast. They will need to double shield to take Switch, which if I were them, I would take double shield because then they're going to be loaded with energy coming out. And they do farm down, so they will have a Draco, they will have an Iron Head. So if you come Xerneas, you're going to have to get a close combat. I was going to say you're going to have to take an Iron Head, but not if you close combat them before they get that off. So goodbye. They realize that they just went down with a ton of energy. It's probably very upsetting to them. They come in Giratina, which makes sense because the tackles are resisted. You need to land the Moonblast. You are going to shield because you just close combat, so your defense is lowered. Will get to the Moonblast before they get to their move. This will one-shot because it is super effective. So goodbye, Mewtwo in the back, and again, game over. They did say this was Mewtwo hunting team, so I know that they showcased all their Mewtwo hunts, I guess. It would be nice to showcase some non-Mewtwo teams as well, but that's okay. So goodbye, Mewtwo. Mewtwo still has play in this meta. I think if you go over my top teams, you will see that you have to lead it because of this exact answer. You have to lead Mewtwo because you cannot get it caught in the back on an Yveltal or a Zarude or a Giratina, right? So I would rather have it on the lead where you just throw the side strike and then bail if you need to, or just bail immediately. They switch into Mewtwo, which I think was a misclick because then they come Dialga, and Dialga is such an amazing answer to Giratina. So I'm surprised they didn't come straight. It must have been a misclick because now they have to burn shield and they're going to lose switch. They could get an Iron Head off here. Do shield. I'm interested to see how much an Iron Head does. It would have been super effective. And they give up switch. All right, I said this exact same thing. You can't give up switch like this. Yeah, Meteor Mash still does okay. There's not a ton. There's like Kyogres. You can throw the Earthquake. But there's not a ton that just like super walls that you can't throw anything. But if you're leading a Xerneas, if your opponent is leading a Xerneas, they probably have one, maybe two answers to Metagross. Now, your opponent may thought that your answer to Metagross was your Giratina, because Giratina is a great answer to Metagross. The only problem with that is, if I'm your opponent, my thought process would be, why would they come in with the immediate answer to Xerneas, to Metagross right away, right? I lead Xerneas, they lead Metagross, or I guess from the reverse. If I have Metagross, I lead into a Xerneas. That's great. They come with Giratina. Giratina is like one of the hardest answers to Metagross. You wouldn't come in with your hardest answer right away because I likely have an answer for that. And they did have an answer for that. They had Dialga, but they just misclicked. So if you're coming in with the hardest answer right away, it's either your opponent doesn't really know how to play properly because you can't come in with your hardest answer right away, or they have two answers for it. And the answer was they had two answers for it, so you can't give up switch there. This matchup, still grab a switch. This is what the strength of Giratina is. Even in like, they took a move, they took a side strike, and take a Gel Run, and they take switch advantage. And now with switch advantage, they get Mewtwo, which is going to make them easy win here. So yeah, that's just something that's more of like a lesson for why people generally play balanced teams with like a safe swap, because you can't come in with your hardest answer immediately, because if your opponent team built properly, they have a hardest answer like response for you, right? You can't just come in immediately like that. But again, Yveltal on Mewtwo, on Metagross, on that is so strong. Giratina is a decent safe swap. Again, Has tough answer, tough Pokemon to go against, but still super strong overall. Xerneas, interesting. Xerneas is ranked like 18th. I think if you just cover your Mewtwo and Kyogre and specifically Metagross weakness, I think it has a ton of play because it just has so many neutral matchups across the board otherwise, or like just strong matchups actually. Let me open Xerneas because close combat Moonblast are just such like a strong combo here. So I mentioned the losses. You do lose to like Ho-Ho too, which makes sense because you both Fairy and close combat are resisted. Landorus, like Flyers are tricky. I mean, Landorus you can still throw Moonblast, but again, you're kind of limited to Moonblast there. And you lose Giratina, but you have like you beat Zacian with close combat and play rough. You beat Zekrom. Again, all these fairies that you beat, not fairies, things that are weak to fairy. Zekrom, Zarude, Reshiram, Garchomp, Dragonite, Yveltal, Palkia, Dialga. Like Dialga is an 847 win because it can only throw the Iron Head. I assume one Iron Head does not take out. I'm just going to run this analysis with no shields on you because I'm assuming one Iron Head will not take you out, but no, it will not. And you can go double close combat before. So even down a shield in the zero, if you have 0 shields with Xerneas and they have 1 shield with Dialga, 1 Iron Head will not take you out and the Dragon Breaths are resisted, so you will get 2 close combats before they take you out. So such a strong matchup against Dialga. Same thing, Palkia, Yveltal, Dragonite, like there's not much they can throw at you. Because all their nuke moves are usually either Dragon or Fighting here. So you're just such a strong matchup. So interesting Pokemon to use. Yeah, just build for Metagross, Excadrill, Kyogre, Mewtwo, Ho-Ho, Landorus is Zacian here with close combat and Wild Charge. Because they can go double Wild Charge on you before you can get moves off on them. That makes sense, I guess. But yeah, thank you for the team. Really cool to showcase some Master League Open teams. So if you have any other Master League Open teams, please send them to me. Link in the description so I can showcase them next week because I will not be playing Master League Open. I will be playing Premier this entire week. So that is it. Appreciate you watching. And I'll see you guys in the next one.